This was back in 2012. I was 24 and living my worst nightmare. I had lost most of my money, my job, and I didn't have anyone to support me. I was doing a low-paying temp job, racking metal parts in preparation for e-coating. It was excruciating and taking a toll on my body. I was applying for more jobs, but I didn't have any callbacks. I was living in my car and somehow trying to get back on my feet. In those days, I was in such a bad condition that sometimes I had to dumpster dive for food. I went to soup kitchens every now and then. I parked my car in a Walmart parking lot and slept there. It was really the only safe place. A few times, I even parked in the hospital parking lot. There was no ounce of peace in my life. I couldn't park anywhere for long to avoid suspicion. I went for a drive every now and then. It was a troublesome time. I remember it was a regular day, sunny and too warm. I had decided to go to the soup kitchen to quench my hunger. I parked my car in the lot and went inside. As you are already aware, many times people come to soup kitchens to complete their community service. It was one such instance, and unfortunately, I was the one who got involved. There was a woman in her late 30s who was being mildly rude to a few people. Everyone was staring at her. Apparently, she had done some petty theft and was ordered to do community service. I didn't want to eavesdrop because I had enough of my own grievances, but I ended up hearing it anyway. After finishing my food, I went back to the parking lot and sat in my car for a while. I was just about to start my car when I heard someone knocking on my window. It was the community service lady people were talking about. I didn't know what she wanted, so I rolled down my windows, completely unaware of what she was going to do next. She immediately grabbed me by the collar and told me to get out of the car. I was shy and easily frightened. It didn't take a lot for anyone to turn me into an anxious mess. I didn't know if I had done something in the kitchen that offended her or if it was something else. I asked her repeatedly if there's any problem, but she kept yelling at me to get out. For a moment, I wanted to flee. People were staring and there was a small crowd in the lot surrounding us. I knew I had to get out. I stepped out of the car and she immediately slapped me, grabbed me by my collar again, and started cursing at me. I was completely befuddled. I didn't expect it in the least. She gave me no reason whatsoever. Somebody from the crowd asked what I had done, and I didn't expect it when she accused me of stealing my own car. He's stealing my car! He broke into my car and thought he could get away with it. How dare you, she shouted. Her car? Huh? I told her several times that she was mistaken. I have had this car for the last 4 years. There was no way it was her car. I pleaded with her to leave me alone and that it was my car. I was already having the worst time, and the last thing I wanted was to be stripped away from what little I had. I kept explaining, but Karen kept screaming at me. I saw a bunch of other old women supporting her. It was wild. I had been too patient and respectful, but she was cursing and physically abusing me. Suddenly, I didn't know what to do. It was all too quick. I managed to put on a brave face. You are here on your community service time. I know that already. This is my car. Look, I have the papers, I cried when she slapped me suddenly. Again, my tears started falling. I was only 22. I was still young and naive. I had depression for quite some time. I was really scared. No way! You are homeless and eating in a soup kitchen. Why would you waste fuel and drive here? She cut me in the middle and looked at me angrily. She was trying to hush me. I knew that if I did something to defend myself by raising my hand or using harsh body language, I would definitely be in trouble. I tried to flee myself from her hold. She wouldn't let go. I explained to everyone how I took my car on a drive every once in a while to avoid suspicion. However, my words didn't reach their ears. I could tell that they knew somewhere that I was telling the truth, but they were still supporting her for no reason. These women didn't look homeless, and I didn't see them in the soup kitchen. I felt so helpless. While all of this was happening, and I was answering their questions, I realized that Karen was nowhere around. In fact, she was now inside of my car. I had made the grave mistake of leaving my keys in there. I knocked on the window and told her to get out of the car, but she flipped her middle finger. She said something along the lines of, "You don't need the car anyway." I thought that I had heard her wrong. She locked the doors and was ransacking my car. Maybe she was trying to find some money? Thankfully, I always kept my savings and money in my jacket that I was always wearing. Obviously, I didn't have a lot, but it was sure enough for emergencies. I had saved in order to buy my medicine and meals if something worse happened. When Karen couldn't find any money, she sighed and threw things around. She muttered something to herself. Then she started the car and drove away. At this point, I realized how messy the situation had become. I had lost everything in an instant. My brain felt like I couldn't process anything anymore. My important papers, toothbrush, clothes, emergency ration, everything was in that car. I didn't know what to do. It was all too sudden. The old women looked at each other. I kept mumbling that it was my car, and one lady scornfully said, "She had the key, so it was obviously hers, you liar," even after being well aware of how I was pulled out of the car. I was panicking when I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was one of the servers from the soup kitchen. I had seen him a couple of times, and he looked like one of the good ones. I told him what had happened and how my car was stolen right in front of my eyes. He didn't look surprised in the least. He said that she had tried to do something like this before, but she was never successful. I guess my mistake was to let her intimidate me. He offered to go to the police station with me. After a few questions and answers, they filed my report. I was told that they were going to look for my car soon. There was CCTV evidence from the soup kitchen's parking lot and Walmart's. They said that they would also be questioning people who were present there. It was crazy. If I didn't get my car, I didn't know what I would do. I had little to no money. My life had been like a broken roller coaster. Without my car, I wouldn't even have a place to keep myself warm. I was so afraid that my hands were shaking. 1.5 days later, I got notified that my car was found. They caught her trying to sell it to a chop shop. She wanted to get some money for the parts. I quickly went to the police station where I saw her sitting and throwing a fit. My first question was if my car was okay. Anxiety was killing me. Although Karen was still unbothered in doing her act. She kept saying that it was her car. She made up a story on the spot about her late husband had gifted her that car on her birthday. "Not your car, you poor bastard," she kept yelling. The police asked her to shut up and told me that they found the vehicle's documents in my bag in the back seat. She was foolish enough to not have cleared anything from the car, they said. Then I was told that it wasn't the first time that she was involved with something like this. She was only charged with petty theft earlier because that was the only time she was actually caught. I was about to leave when she said the most unbelievable thing. I couldn't imagine anyone being so entitled and disgusting. She looked me dead in the eye and said I didn't need the car. I asked what the hell she was trying to imply. She calmly said that she decided to take the car because I was young and could find a living or ask my parents for support. She couldn't do that because she was old and didn't have a family or children to take care of her. Then she proceeded to demand my car so that she could get some money by selling it. Apparently in her eyes, I wasn't unfortunate enough. Everyone was looking at her dumbfounded. I was a poor kid, dumpster diving for basic necessities. My shoes were always broken, and my socks had had several holes in them. She, on the other hand, was wearing brand new sneakers and looked like she made enough to buy food for herself. The cops told her that they had all the CCTV footage they needed, and the fact that she admitted to her crimes unintentionally was enough evidence. That shut her up real fast. Not for long, though. She declared that she won't be doing community service anymore, and the cops explained what would happen if she didn't. She said she shouldn't be expected to give back to the community because the community has done nothing for her, and of course, she glared at me right after saying that. I took my car back. Thankfully, there were no scratches or problems. That one incident kind of changed my life. I went to the soup kitchen to thank the man who accompanied me to the police station. He needed a waiter for his restaurant and offered me a position. I eagerly accepted his offer. My living conditions improved, and I was able to find a decent job in a few months. It paid well, and I finally moved out of my car to a studio apartment. This year, I purchased my first 3 BHK. I don't know what happened to the woman, but I was told that she was awarded 2 years of prison time. I guess things worked out in the end. Since the family intervention, my parents have kept my brother in check, and they are doing okay in terms of making up for years of treating me like crap. They've even promised to host my next birthday and have my favorite cake with my name on it. My brother did overhear this because my parents had him doing dishes in the kitchen, and he just stopped what he was doing and went right to his room. No fake crying, just a complete shutdown. He still glares at me from his window every time I leave when I come to visit. A little while ago, my parents allowed my brother some privileges for good behavior. Though to my brother, they're basically the opposite of anything he'd like. My parents decided that he could have a little fun for good behavior. So my dad dug out his old N64 and Game Boy Color from the 90s. He still had most of his old games for both systems, and also had an old CRT TV to hook them up to. When they were offered to my brother, he just complained that they were old and boring. My dad just said he could suit himself then, and go back to reading. Took one night before my brother was begging to have the old 90s game systems. He used to have many game systems, a gaming PC, and even a gaming chair with Bluetooth speakers on it. Now, all he has is a folding chair or his bed to sit on while gaming. I came by for a visit around the time he first got his N64 because my parents wanted to have me over for dinner. And I got to see my brother in his room yelling at the old CRT TV while playing Mario 64. He really wasn't happy. Especially since he couldn't even go online to check for guides, walkthroughs, or cheat codes. For the Game Boy Color, I saw he had some Pokemon games and at least one Donkey Kong. My dad has said that if my brother is extra good by the end of summer, they'll upgrade him to a Game Boy Advance. My parents quickly realized, though, that the Game Boy Color would eat AA batteries. So my brother has to use a power cord for it now. And he does play it, maybe because he's used to having a phone in his hands playing app games so much. Because my brother likes cycling, but no longer owns a bike since our parents sold it, he was without an outlet to exercise. My dad found a used exercise bike on Facebook Marketplace and put it in my brother's room. He also got a used CD player, mini boombox from somewhere the same day. So yeah, my brother just rides that exercise bike since he can't go outside unless it's to do chores. And he rides it aggressively. He tunes into whatever music gets him going, and then he rides that exercise bike hard. From the look on his face, I'd call it hate riding. Almost like what you'd expect to see on the face of a vindictive prison inmate exercising in their cell and waiting for the day that they can get out and get revenge. I had mentioned this to my parents, and they have the same worries that I do. So my dad started burning CDs with my brother's favorite music that used to be on his gaming computer that they also sold. Each burned CD had 10 songs, and he would get one for every week of good behavior. He's only gotten one so far since it started, not because of bad behavior, but because not enough time had gone by for him to get more. I'm not sure if I'd call my brother's behavior good. He's just not really being bad. I don't hear him complaining out loud anymore most of the time, but I see it in his face, especially when he glares at me from his window when I get my mini bike to go home. He definitely resents me, but it's not the same look he gives our parents when they aren't looking. He glares at them like they destroyed his life. But if I were to put it into words, he glares at me with envy, like I have everything he wants. The look just seems to say, just wait till I'm 18. I remember having those same thoughts when I wanted to move the hell out after high school, but I made sure I had life plans with the help of my aunt when I moved. But my brother doesn't know anything about how to do that. So he's probably still thinking of it in the simplest way as a kid usually would. Oh great, now I'm sounding like a know-it-all. I have tried to talk with my brother, but he doesn't have much to say. I've been stopping by every few days to spend some time with him. We don't speak much because he's gotten very quiet, but he does seem to enjoy having someone to play with since our parents won't. He eagerly hands me a controller every time I'm there. We've mostly been playing racing games like Mario Kart on Dad's old N64 in my brother's room, and he gets pretty aggressive while playing. He keeps swinging the controller around wildly with nearly every move he makes, and he has even shoved me over a few times when he was losing. I've learned to brace my leg so he can't do that. He had a few light tantrums for losing, but is getting a little better. I've had some game FAQ walkthroughs and cheat codes of the game he's been playing on the old N64 printed out at the local library and put them in a binder for him, and that's made him a little nicer to me. Our parents wanted to get some stuff for summer homeschooling for my brother, but I warned them that was probably not a good idea. He's already in an almost constant state of anger, and the goal is to mellow him out and make him more accepting that life won't go his way like it used to anymore, not piss him off even more. My dad got angry with me about how he's the father and not me, and that sparked an argument where I reminded him of the things that went on over the past decade. All of the favoritism, all of how I was blamed for so much, even how I had to hide my money at my aunt's house because they kept letting my brother try to steal it. I didn't outright say that he's a bad parent, but it was heavily implied. He backed off, and my mom told him that I was right, and trying to force home summer schooling on my brother will not help. That made my dad shut down, and he went to go drink alone in the living room. My mom has apologized to me repeatedly over the past actions. She says that she blames herself because it was her idea to coddle my brother so much, and my dad just goes along with it. She told me that back then she was never thinking ahead to what my brother would be like as an adult. She basically refused to admit he was going to grow up, so she just kept spoiling him to try and keep him as a baby. My parents have scheduled couples counseling, but it's going to be a while before they get in due to the waiting period. My dad is obviously not looking forward to it. It's harder to make him admit wrongdoing than my mom. He caved and admitted how much he screwed up during the family intervention. But since then, he's tried to act like he's just a normal parent. But I've made it clear that pretending that crap didn't happen won't make it go away. And my mom agrees with me. So that's where things are right now. Hopefully my next update will be better. Sounds like a step in the right direction. I'm concerned about your brother, though. Is he in therapy? He needs help desperately. Do you encourage your brother to read books? That is probably the best thing to do to keep the brain functioning over the summer.